Welcome again to session 10, Literature Review in Research. We have been saying and mentioning literature review in so many, almost in all lessons that we started before this. But now, let's have the concept of literature review in session 10. By the end of this session, I'm expected you to be able to describe the reason for reviewing available literature. I should be able to identify the resources that are available for carrying out such a review. You should be able to prepare an index card for summarizing important information obtained from the literature and prepare a review of literature pertaining to research topic. A literature review is the reading of the works of others before starting your research and doing a summary about previous studies on the topic. As we said earlier, you have seen a problem, I get it, but maybe some people back have been worked or they worked on it and they had their findings, and maybe they tried to implement what they found to solve the problem, but you see still the problem is persisting. So you should go through and review the work. That's why we say if the reading of the works of others before starting your research and doing a summary about previous studies on the topic. So a literature review provides a helpful guide to a particular topic. It can be used as a foundation and as a support for a new insight that you contribute. It can be used as a foundation and a support for a new insight that you contribute. For example, someone has done A, B, C, D, and he ended somewhere, and for you, you're going to carry on the task of your seen even after implementation, or after all that have been done, still there are some factors, maybe they have been neglected, but if they were included, the problem wouldn't persist, So you go through and it will easily the work that you're doing. So the focus of literature review is to summarize and synthesize the argument and ideas of others without adding new contribution. The focus of literature review is to summarize and synthesize the argument and the ideas of others without adding new contributions. Because what you see is what they have done. And the facts that have been laid down and analyzed, So what you do in this literature review, you synthesize or you summarize and synthesize the argument and ideas of others without adding new contribution yet. So a researcher needs to find out what has been done already and build on that foundation, because scientific research is cumulative. You need to find out what has been done already and build on that foundation, because scientific research is cumulative, as we said earlier. So this involves determining what has been done and what still needs to be done, and examining what books and professional journals have already revealed in your area or country, or in other areas or countries with similar problem or context. This is what we have been talking about, and actually this is what I've been telling you what literature review is. Let's see the sources of information for literature review. Sources of information might be individual, groups, and organizations. Published information such as books, article, index, and abstract journal. Unpublished information, other research proposal in related field, reports, records. It might be a computer database. Different sources of information can be consulted and reviewed at various levels of the administrative system within your country and internationally. When we say different sources of information can be consulted and reviewed at various levels of the administrative system within your country and internationally. Maybe you want to do your research on malaria. You get it. Getting this data, it will let you go to what? To have an access for the data. So not every data can be taken easily, You sometimes should follow procedure to review a certain data. I get it. For example, malaria mortality rate. I get it. Uh, or morbidity rate. All of this, the morbidity or mortality, if you want them, you should have or you should request for the access to review these data. That's what you say. You can be consulted and reviewed. You have to consult and reviewed at various levels of the administrative level system within your country and internationally. Figure 10 shows sources of information at various levels of the administrative system. In this, we have seen community and district or regional level. Example of resources, opinions, belief of key information through interview in addition to written sources, dispensary, health center, and hospital-based data from routine HMIS registers, clinical observation, a report of critical incidents, local survey, annual service report, statistics issued at ward, district level, newspapers, book articles, etc., etc. When you go to national level, for example, article from journals, books identified during literature searches at university and other national libraries, WHO, UNICEF, libraries, and etc., etc. Special collection, example newspaper, archive records, library or documentation, report on raw data from Ministry of Health, central statistical offices, a non-government organization, example annual sector, indicator profile, and etc. etc. To international level, information from bilateral and multilateral organization, example UNAIDS, USAIDS, UNICEF, WHO, and etc. etc. Computerized searches for international literature from national library or international institutions. Let's see the writing a literature review. Writing a literature review. In writing a literature review, you should organize your notes in groups of related statements according to each aspect of the problem they touch upon. Organize your notes in groups of related statements according to each aspect of the problem they touch upon. Example, community factor, service factor, and etc. etc. Use your problem analysis diagram as a framework and adapt the diagram in turn as you find more literature. Use your problem analysis diagram as a framework and adapt the diagram in turn as you find more literature. Decide in which order you want to discuss the various issues. Decide in which order you want to discuss the various issues. Let's see where do you put and which information. Where do you put which information? Which information belong to where? This is what they mean. So some literature can be used to describe the local context. Some literature can be used to describe the local context, district, region, country, or problem. All facts mentioned need a source except some general and well-known statement. All facts mentioned need a source except some general and well-known statement. For the description of the selected problem, use all available raw or published literature. Literature from other countries or regions may be used to illustrate your point. If these sources are many, you may have separate section on international literature. More complex studies using theoretical model should have separate section discussion. This model, more complex studies using theoretical model should have a separate section discussing these models, which could come after the section of statement of the problem. When drafting the background section or the statement of the problem, usually do not describe sources one by one. Instead, write a coherent discussion in your own words, using all relevant literature linked to each other. It is possible to cite several sources for one statement, reference all the literature referred to in your review. At the end of your paper, list your references in order using the format described. I think you should not get confused here. We are going to see more of this literature review. How do we write literature review? How do we indicate the literature review in our research or research proposal? Because at the end of your paper, you should list your references in order using format described above. In research proposal, the reference comes before the annexes. We're going to see what a research proposal is. Now the general concept of the literature review and why should we review the literature. So select one style of reference such as Vancouver, Harvard, etc., and use it consistently for citation and a reference list in your proposal. Also this week, Oracy. Bias in literature. Bias, a distortion of the available information in such a way that it reflects opinions or conclusions which do not represent the real situation. Bias is a distortion of the available information in such a way that it reflects opinions or conclusions which do not represent the real situation. Understanding the various types of bias have to be critical of the existing literature. If you have reservations about certain references or you find the conflict opinions in the literature, the discussion or then discuss this openly and critically. Such a critical attitude may help you to avoid biases in your study. Common types of bias in literature include, let's see these common types of bias in literature, which are playing down controversies and differences in one's own study result. Playing down controversies and differences in one's own study result. Restricting reference to those that support the point of view of the author. Drawing far-reaching conclusion from preliminary or sharp research result, or making sweeping generalization from just one case or small study. Let's go to identification of resources that are available for carrying out literature review. Resources that are available for carrying out literature review include people, individual or groups, organization, publications. We have seen books with compiled research information, journal, maybe hard or electronic copies. We said unpublished information, grade literature, example, dissertation, research reports, not in journals, supervisors and fellow students. Sources could be at different level of administrative system. It might be at community level, district and regional level, and provincial level. It might be at national level, example, national libraries, Ministry of Health, Central Statistics, etc., etc. As we said, it might be international level, UNICEF, WHO, USAID, etc., etc., including computerized search for international research. Let's go and see the summarizing important information obtained from the index card. Summarizing important information obtained from the index card. Strategy 1. What to do with the identified information. Read through. Summarize the context relevant to your study. And in summarizing the context relevant to your study, we use the index card, or is what we call index card, summarizing the content relevant to your study, which means you have reviewed all this literature, but you have to take a summary of the content relevant to your study. As you also do the same study, or a study, and you should find where or what others have done before. When you do the review of these literatures, you summarize the content relevant to the study that you're doing. Not pertinent information, not pertinent or patent information. So you should write the title of an article, the author of an article, title of the journal, book, page, year, etc. Aim of the study, methodology, major findings, utility of information, write the literature review selection, prepare a list of references. Stage 2, what to do with the identified information. Organizing group of related information or themes. Sequence the information from far to near for each theme, example India, Africa, East Africa, Tanzania. Write coherently using your own words. Be writing, not citing. Use past tense. That's why there is what they call plagiarism. You may review someone's research and you're trying to copy and paste. Now whatever is done is what you're writing, and your research is full of someone's work. This is against the copyright laws, and it will be a site source's work and not the original work. So you should write on your own. I should use past tense. So cite sources, cite sources properly using the recommended style. Let's see a review of literature pertaining to research topic. A review of the literature pertaining to research topic can find in the following. Plagiarism, as I said, pretending information is yours, is defined as an object, language, word, text, diagram, graph, ideas, which has been taken from sources, books, journal, internet, not just text, by an agent, person, student, academician, without adequate acknowledgement of sources and with or without intention to deceive. Suppressing, omitting controversies, conflicting opinion or differences, using author supportive references only, over-concluding generalization from inadequate data, one case or small study or poor design. Such type of bias may have serious ethical implication, may affect people's health, take researcher to court, and etc. etc. I think this is the general view of literature review, but this is not the end of what we see with literature review. When we go to writing a research proposal, we're going to see the part of literature review. And when we see an example of this, we're also going to note down what a literature review is written. So it's not a problem. It should not allow fear to come into you. If you don't understand, just get this general concept of the literature review. Try to understand the bias in literature review. Are we getting it? So when you review, you note down the relevant information you reviewed which are related to your study. I've said this is what we call the index card. Now let's see the key point. So a literature review or search is a systematic and thorough search of all types of published research or literature in order to identify as many items as possible that are relevant to a particular topic. Resources that are available for carrying out such a review are people, publication, and published information, supervisors, and fellow students. Evaluation, these are some few questions in which you may try into your own and see if you understood the subject or not. What are the reasons for reviewing available literature? What are the resources that are available for carrying out literature review? Thank you very much. You may pass through in case of any problem or any difficulties. We come down for a discussion.